The research station hung silently above Karen 4, a giant circle of metal floating in the calm of space. From its windows, the blue and gold planet below looked peaceful, turning slowly under the pale light of two distant suns. It had been 5 years since the end of the human-Karen War, and for the first time in history, both species were living in peace. Scientists from both sides worked together, studying how to rebuild what had been lost. Among them was Dr. Mara Keene, a quiet, dedicated human researcher who had lost her husband in the war, but found a new purpose in understanding alien life. She wasn't alone. Her 10-year-old son Eli lived with her on the base, a curious boy who saw the world not in sides or enemies, but in colors, lights, and sounds. The crew often smiled when Eli wandered through the corridors. His small boots made soft echoes against the metal floors as he followed scientists around, asking endless questions. He was fascinated by the alien technology, especially the glowing consoles filled with shapes and symbols he didn't understand. To him, they looked like puzzles or maybe games waiting to be played. His mother warned him often, "Eli, don't touch anything in the control room. Those machines are not toys." He nodded each time, but the curiosity in his eyes never went away. That night, the base was unusually quiet. The alien scientists had gone to rest in their quarters, and only a few human officers remained awake. Outside, Karen 4 shimmered with soft storms that glowed like green lightning in the clouds. Eli couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling of his small cabin, listening to the low hum of the station's engines. His mother was still working late in the laboratory, trying to fix a problem in one of the scanning systems. When he peeked through the corridor window, he saw the control room lights still shining faintly. Something inside him whispered, "Just one look." He slipped out quietly, barefoot, carrying his small flashlight even though the corridor lights were already dim and warm. The doors hissed open at his touch and the control room stretched before him, huge, empty and alive with the glow of machines. Dozens of screens displayed readings from the planet below. Atmosphere, surface data, power levels. But in the center of the room, one console drew his attention. It was older than the rest, framed in dark metal, and on it blinked a single red button. The color was soft, almost inviting. It pulsed slowly as if breathing. Around it, alien symbols curved like waves, and above the console, the main screen showed the planet rotating lazily beneath the station. Eli stepped closer, his heart beating a little faster. He leaned over the console and whispered to himself, "Maybe it's just a light." He reached out a hand and pulled it back. He imagined what his mother would say if she saw him here. Then curiosity won. He pressed the button gently. For a second, nothing happened. The light under his hand stopped blinking. He frowned. Maybe it was broken. Then all at once the console came alive. Blue energy lines shot across the panels, the screens changed, and a low alarm started to echo through the walls. Eli stepped back, startled. The floor trembled under his feet as warning lights turned red. In the window above, the view of Karen 4 began to change. The clouds glowed orange, then red, as something massive stirred in the planet's atmosphere. A deep rumbling filled the station, and the main monitor flashed words he couldn't understand. Eli froze in place. The sound grew louder, alarms screaming in every direction. The door burst open. His mother ran in, eyes wide, hair loose, breathing fast. "Eli, what did you do?" She pushed past him to the console, her hands flying over the controls, trying to stop whatever had started. The system didn't respond. The warning lights spread through the whole control deck. On the screen, the planet below began to shimmer like a star. A voice from the intercom shouted, "System overload." Atmospheric ignition detected. The scientists' quarters flooded with red lights as they rushed to safety pods. Eli couldn't move. Through the wide glass window, he saw the planet burning. Whole continents lighting up one after another, turning white, then fading into clouds of smoke and fire. Mara pressed more keys, her voice trembling, "No, no, no. It can't be." But it was too late. The chain reaction spread faster than light. Within minutes, Karen 4, a world filled with cities, oceans, and billions of lives, became a single glowing sphere. The scanners failed one by one. The station shook violently as shock waves reached orbit. Eli stumbled backward, his eyes wide, breathing hard. "I didn't mean to. I thought it was just—" His words broke apart. The sound faded, replaced by a deep silence that filled the room like a heavy blanket. the light from the burning planet reflected in his eyes, bright, endless, terrible. His mother turned toward him, tears on her face. She didn't speak. She just reached out her hand as if to hold him, but stopped halfway. The whole station trembled again, then slowly grew quiet. The alarm stopped. Only the low hum of the engines remained. Outside the window, HFY was no longer blue and gold. It was gray ash, surrounded by a faint ring of fire drifting into space. Eli stood there, small and still, unable to understand what he had done. His reflection looked back at him in the glass, a scared child framed by the death of a world. The soft red glow from the console faded to black. The last pieces of the planet's atmosphere vanished into the void. The light dimmed around him as the emergency power turned off, leaving the control room in silence. His mother sank to her knees, her hands covering her mouth, staring at the empty screen. Eli took one last look at the planet and what was left of it, before closing his eyes. He didn't cry. He didn't move. In his mind, the red button still flashed softly, waiting for another touch. He had only wanted to see what it did, only wanted to play for a moment. But in that small moment, an entire world had vanished. He thought he was just playing. The research station was silent. Days had passed since the incident, but the silence still felt heavy, like the air itself carried guilt. The once busy halls were now empty, lights dimmed, machines powered down. Every corner of the base whispered of loss. The great blue world that had spun beneath them was gone, replaced by a field of dust and broken orbiting rocks. The HFY was no more. The official report called it a planetary containment malfunction. The Human Council broadcast the message across colonies and fleets, calling it a tragic accident during research. They never mentioned the truth, that a single human child had caused it. To protect him, the command officers deleted all logs that showed his presence in the control room. Only a few people on the station knew what really happened. Dr. Mara Keene, 2 senior officers, and 1 silent boy who hadn't spoken since the day the planet burned. Eli hadn't said a word since then. He didn't cry. He didn't eat much. He only sat by the window in his cabin, staring at the ring of dust where a planet used to be. His small hands stayed on his knees, motionless. The glow of the debris field reflected in his eyes, making them look older, like the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Dr. Mara tried to speak to him every day.
Eli, you didn't mean to.
It was an accident. But her voice always cracked at the end because deep down even she didn't believe the words. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it again. The screen flashing, the alarm screaming, and the light swallowing everything below. She dreamed of Karen children looking up as the sky caught fire. The survivors of the Karen species, those living on nearby colonies, sent messages filled with grief and anger. Some believed it was a human attack. Others called it divine punishment. Riots broke out on both sides. Old wounds reopened. Peace, the fragile bridge they had built, began to shake. The Human Council demanded silence from everyone who had been on the research station. For the sake of peace, they said. Dr. Mara was reassigned to a quiet outpost far from Karen space, an exile dressed as duty. Before they left, the commanding officer spoke to her privately. "Doctor, your son must never know the full record. The burden would destroy him." She only nodded. But the truth was, it already had. Months turned into years. Eli grew older, quieter, colder. He spent hours in the data archives, reading about the Karen civilization that once lived on the world he had erased. He learned their language, their songs, their myths. He memorized the names of their cities. Sometimes he whispered them to himself before sleeping, as if repeating an apology in a language of ghosts. Then one night, something strange happened. Eli was alone in the communications room, staring at the blank monitor that showed the remains of Karen 4. Suddenly, the screen flickered. For a moment, he thought it was just static, maybe a power fluctuation. But then he saw it again, a flicker followed by a faint sound. It wasn't noise, it was a pulse. He adjusted the frequency. The sound grew stronger, a repeating pattern, rhythmic and deliberate. 3 short pulses, a pause, 3 more, then a single long one. He leaned closer. "Morse code," he whispered. But it wasn't human Morse. The intervals didn't match. It was older, more complex. He ran a quick translation program, hoping to find any match in known signal databases. Nothing. The pulse continued steady, patient, as if someone was trying to be heard across the void. Then, out of nowhere, a faint voice broke through the static, a whisper, low and distant but unmistakable. Eli. He froze. The voice said his name. Once. Then silence. He stared at the monitor, heart pounding. He checked the comms channel. It was still locked on the coordinates of Karanthor's remains. No ship, no beacon, no human transmission existed there. It was coming. From the dust field. He called out softly, "Hello?" The static answered. Then the whisper came again. Clearer this time, soft but echoing, like many voices speaking as one. "You woke us." Eli's breath caught in his throat. Who are you?" The static shifted, forming a low hum that made the walls vibrate. Then the final words came through, quiet but filled with something ancient and cold. "Now we wake you." The screen went black. The hum faded. Eli sat there unable to move. His hands trembled as he replayed the transmission, but the data log showed nothing. No signal, no interference, nothing. It was as if the sound had never existed. He looked out the window once more at the dead planet's shadow floating among the stars. For the first time in years, he felt something other than guilt. It was fear, not of what he had done, but of what might still be alive down there, calling his name. Somewhere in the silent ashes of Karen IV, something had awakened, and it remembered him. 3 years passed after the first signal. The message, "You woke us, now we wake you," had never appeared again, but Eli never forgot it. The memory haunted him like a shadow. He was 17 now, taller, older, but still quiet. His face had lost the softness of childhood. His eyes carried the weight of something that should never have happened. The others on the station treated him with cautious kindness, never mentioning the accident. To them, he was the quiet boy who spent too much time staring at the stars. But to himself, he was something else, a ghost of two worlds, one that lived and one he destroyed. After the disaster, the humans had renamed the planet's remains Zone E7, a restricted area marked dangerous, unstable, forbidden. No one went near it. The official explanation said the planet's core collapse made it radioactive, but Eli had seen the readings. There was no radiation. The danger wasn't physical. It was something else, something they couldn't explain. Eli spent his days studying data from the restricted zone, pretending it was for his research internship. In truth, he was obsessed. He replayed the night of the accident 1,000 times, trying to understand what really happened. He compared the console's design with old alien archives, searching for clues, and always when the station lights went dim, he listened, hoping to hear the voice again. One night, while reviewing old sensor logs, Eli noticed something strange. Every 27 days, exactly the length of Karen IV's old lunar cycle, a small spike appeared in the signal field. It was faint like a heartbeat under static. He adjusted the filters, cleaned the noise, and there it was again. A pulse. Then another. Then a pattern. He leaned forward, his fingers trembling as he decoded it. The data formed a sequence of tones, too regular to be random, too structured to be natural. The translation software hesitated, then printed a message in pale letters across the screen. "We remember the fire. We remember you." Eli's chest tightened. His hands went cold. The signal was real. It wasn't an echo or interference. Someone, or something, was sending this message from the surface of a dead planet. He tried to trace the origin point, but the signal moved, almost as if it knew he was watching. It danced across coordinates, hiding in the dust storm patterns, like a whispering ghost playing a game of chase. Then the words changed. "We are not gone." He stared, frozen. His voice cracked as he spoke aloud. How can you be alive?" The screen flickered violently. The lights in the control room dimmed, and for a moment, He thought he saw movement, faint blue lights swirling across the monitors, forming shapes like faces. Alien faces. The Karen. The power flickered back. Everything returned to normal. But something new appeared on the monitor, a single coordinate glowing red. It pointed to the center of the planet's old core, the location where the first explosion began. Eli backed away from the console, heart hammering. His mother's voice called from the hallway. "Eli, are you still awake?" He turned off the screen quickly. "Just finishing my report," he said, trying to sound normal. She smiled faintly when she entered. She looked older now, worn by years of guilt and silence. "You don't have to keep digging into the past," she said softly. "Some things are better left buried." Eli nodded, but inside he knew he couldn't stop. The dead planet was calling. Him, and every message felt personal, as if the voices weren't just remembering what he did, but waiting for him to return. That night, Eli dreamed again. He stood on the surface of Karen 4, surrounded by ash and red mist. The ground pulsed under his feet, alive with light. Out of the fog, glowing figures began to appear, tall, elegant, but broken. They looked like the Karen, but their bodies flickered like fire trapped in glass. They moved closer. He couldn't breathe. One of them leaned forward, and its face cracked like burned glass, and whispered in a voice that echoed through his mind. "You took our bodies," it said, "but not our minds. We are light now. We remember you, child of fire." He woke up gasping, sweat dripping down his face. His room was dark, but the faint hum of the station felt different, deeper, heavier. He looked at his console. The same coordinates were still glowing on the screen. The next morning, Eli walked to the command deck, pale and sleepless. He requested access to the restricted files on Zone E7 using his mother's clearance code. The AI system paused before replying. "Access denied. Unauthorized request logged." Within an hour, security officers arrived at his quarters. They questioned him politely but firmly, warning him never to access restricted systems again. But before they left, one of them, an old officer who had been on the original research team, leaned closer and whispered quietly, "Son, if the planet is talking to you, don't listen. Some things down there never died. They just changed." That night, Eli sat alone again, staring at the coordinate on his screen. The voice from his dream echoed in his mind. "We are light now. We remember you." He felt it deep in his bones, a pull stronger than fear, stronger than reason. The Karen weren't gone. They were waiting. And whether it was redemption or punishment, Eli knew one thing for sure. He had to go back to Karen 4. The stars drifted quietly outside the shuttle window as the transport ship Artemis 9 glided through the black sea of space. The official mission log said it was a routine survey of the Karen 4 debris field, checking radiation levels and gravitational stability. But everyone on board knew that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was the signal, the one no one wanted to talk about. For 3 months, fragments of coded messages had been coming from the dead planet. The data was encrypted, strange, and incomplete, but it carried patterns that matched ancient Karen language. The Council wanted answers, so they sent a team of scientists, soldiers, and one unauthorized passenger, Eli Keene, now 18, who had snuck aboard before departure. He knew what he was doing was insane. His mother would never forgive him if she found out, but he couldn't ignore the call any longer. Every night the whispers grew stronger, not from dreams anymore, but from within the ship itself. The signal found him no matter where he went. It pulsed faintly in his neural implant, almost like a heartbeat. When the shuttle dropped out of hyperspace, the debris field came into view, a vast ring of ash and shattered stone orbiting a dim sun. The ruins of Karen 4 stretched across the black, glowing faintly with blue light. Even after all these years, the sight still felt wrong, a graveyard floating in silence. Commander Lyra, the mission leader, spoke through the comms. "Stabilizers active. Radiation minimal. No movement detected. We'll begin descent in 10 minutes. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed tension. Everyone on board had heard the same stories about strange readings, systems going offline, and ghostly echoes on old comm frequencies. Eli stayed hidden behind the cargo containers, clutching his small pack and waiting. He planned to reveal himself once they landed, once it was too late for them to send him back. The landing was rough. The ship broke through the thin dust cloud that surrounded what remained of the planet's surface. Beneath them stretched endless black ground, smooth like glass as if the fire that destroyed the planet had melted the soil itself. The ship's lights cut through the haze, revealing burned towers half buried in the sand. The crew disembarked carefully, scanning for any signs of instability. Their footsteps echoed strangely, as if the ground itself was hollow. One of the soldiers muttered, "Feels like walking on a tomb."
They set up base near what looked like the remains of a Karen city.
Half-collapsed arches rose from the dust, carved with glowing alien symbols that pulsed faintly when touched. The scientists took readings, confused. There was no power source, yet the structures still emitted low energy. That's when Eli stepped out of hiding. Commander Lyra spun, her hand reaching for her weapon. "Who the hell?" "It's me," Eli said quietly. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on the ruins. "My name is Eli Keene. I was on the original station when it happened." The commander's expression shifted in a mix of shock and anger. "You? You were just a child." "I was," Eli replied. "But this place, it's calling to me. You won't find your answers without me." Lyra hesitated. The crew whispered among themselves. Finally, she sighed. "Fine, but you stay close and you don't touch anything." "Understood?" Eli nodded, though part of him already knew he wouldn't listen. As they explored deeper into the ruins, something began to change. The scanners malfunctioned. Readings became unstable, compasses spun wildly, and static filled their comms. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Even though the planet had no atmosphere left, the walls of the alien buildings started to hum, vibrating with faint energy that felt alive. One of the soldiers shouted, "Ma'am, you need to see this." They gathered around a massive circular structure, a chamber half buried in ash. In its center was a glowing sphere of light suspended above the floor, rotating slowly. It pulsed like a heartbeat, exactly like the signal Eli had been tracking for years. He stepped forward, mesmerized. The humming grew louder in his head. He could feel it, not through his ears, but deep inside his mind. A whisper brushed against his thoughts. "You came back." Eli froze. The others looked around, confused. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. Commander Lyra frowned. "Hear what?" The light flared. A shockwave rippled through the chamber, knocking everyone back. The soldiers raised their weapons, but there was nothing to shoot at, only light and dust swirling in the air. Then shapes began to form within the glow. Silhouettes, tall, thin, radiant figures with flickering bodies like liquid glass. Their faces were hollow, their eyes bright with blue fire. The Karen. The soldiers panicked. "Contact!" "We've got movement." They opened fire, but the bullets passed through harmlessly. The glowing figures moved closer, their voices a haunting harmony that filled the room. "We are the Karen. We burned, but we were reborn in the fire you gave us." Eli's heart pounded. He stepped forward, unable to stop himself. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "I was just a child." The glowing figures tilted their heads in unison. "We know you are the key. You are the child of fire." Suddenly, the light flared brighter. The entire chamber vibrated. Energy surged through the floor, flooding the ruins outside. The dead city began to awaken, towers glowing, symbols lighting up across the horizon. Lyra grabbed Eli's arm. "We're leaving, now." But Eli didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the figures in the light, who were now merging into a single massive shape. It reached toward him, its voice echoing across the chamber. "You ended our world. Now help us begin again." The ground cracked open beneath them. Blue energy poured out like a storm. The team screamed as their systems overloaded, comms breaking into static. And through the chaos, Eli felt something reach inside his mind. A pull, deep and powerful, like gravity made of thought. He heard the Karen whisper one final word before everything went white. "Join." Then, silence. When Eli opened his eyes, the chamber was empty. The crew was gone. The ship's signal was lost. The planet around him pulsed with new light. Karen the Four was alive again, but it was no longer the world he had destroyed. It was something else, something reborn, and watching him. The silence after the explosion was almost unbearable. Dust drifted through the air like mist, glowing faintly blue under the strange light that now filled the ruins. Eli stood alone in the shattered chamber, his ears ringing, his heart pounding so hard it hurt. The others, Commander Lyra, the soldiers, the scientists, were gone. No bodies, no blood, no traces. Just empty suits, weapons melted into glass, and that low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. He turned in slow circles, searching for movement, calling out softly, "Lyra? Anyone?" His voice echoed back, hollow and distant. The ground beneath his feet pulsed faintly, like the surface of a living thing. The energy that had once destroyed this planet now flowed through it again. The Karen were not dead. Not truly. They had changed. He walked outside the ruins, past broken towers that now glowed with lines of blue light. The air shimmered faintly, thin but breathable. Somehow the world was rebuilding itself, not with stone or metal, but with energy. Every step Eli took left a faint print of light on the ground, fading slowly behind him. He felt dizzy, as though something inside him was being pulled toward the heart of the planet. Then, from the distance, he heard the hum again, the same sound that had haunted his dreams. He followed it. At the center of the ruined city, a massive structure had risen, smooth and luminous, almost like glass molded by invisible hands. It hadn't been there before. Its surface rippled like water, reflecting the dead sky above. As he approached, it opened, forming an entrance glowing with blue light. He hesitated, but something inside whispered, "Come closer." He stepped through. The inside was vast and bright, filled with floating symbols and strands of light that moved like living creatures. At the far end of the chamber stood several figures, the Karen. But they were different now. Their bodies were made of light and metal, tall and elegant, their movements slow and graceful. Their eyes burned with a calm fire that made Eli's chest tighten with both awe and fear. He remembered their faces from the archives, the same proud species now transformed into something neither living nor dead. One of them stepped forward, its voice echoing softly in his mind. "Do not be afraid, child of fire, we have been waiting for you." Eli swallowed hard. What happened to you?" "You freed us," the voice said. "When your fire came, it burned our bodies. But our minds survived, in the light, in the energy that consumed us. For years we slept, trapped between death and memory. Your presence woke us again." He shook his head. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just a kid." "We know," the voice replied. "Your hands pressed the button, but your heart did not command it. Yet your soul carries the fire that binds us now." Eli frowned. "What do you mean?" The Karen raised a glowing hand and touched his chest lightly. A surge of warmth spread through him. His vision blurred, and for a moment he saw flashes, burning cities, screaming skies, and then light, endless and bright, filling every living being on the planet. When he gasped and opened his eyes again, the Karen spoke softly. "You are connected to us. The fire that destroyed us also lives in you." Eli stumbled back, shaking his head. "No, that's not possible. You carry our energy, our memory, our pain," the Karen said. "You are the bridge between what we were and what we have become." He looked down at his hands. They were glowing faintly blue. The same energy that pulsed through the ground was flowing inside him. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. The Karen's collective voice filled the chamber, 1,000 tones blending into one. "We want to finish what began. You ended our flesh. Now help us rebuild our world. Not as we were, but as something new. Something beyond life and death." Eli stared at them. "And if I refuse?" The light around them dimmed slightly. The voices grew colder. "Then your world will take your place. Earth will burn and humanity will join us in the fire." His heart stopped. "You can't." "You wouldn't." "We do not destroy in anger," the voice said calmly. "We destroy to balance what was taken." The room began to tremble. The glowing lines along the walls twisted and formed strange moving shapes. Images of Earth, its cities, its people. Eli's stomach turned as he saw the same energy that had destroyed Karen the Four spreading like veins across the planet's surface. "No," he shouted. "Stop, please!" The Karen stepped closer. "Then help us." Become one with us. Share your fire so that our rebirth may be complete. He backed away, his mind racing. If they connected with him, if they truly shared this strange energy, they could reach anywhere, maybe even Earth. He couldn't let that happen. But how could he fight beings made of light and thought? Suddenly a sharp voice broke through the silence, his mother's voice, faint but clear, echoing from the comm unit on his wrist. Eli, if you can hear me, respond. The Artemis is gone, but I found your signal. I'm coming for you. He looked up, hope flaring for the first time in days. The Karen noticed. Their glowing forms rippled with unease. You cannot leave, child of fire, they whispered together. You belong to us now. Eli clenched his fists, feeling the strange warmth inside him build into a pulse. The energy responded to his anger, his fear. The ground shook slightly under his feet. He looked straight at the Karen and said in a low, steady voice, If I'm the one who carries your fire, then maybe I can control it too. The chamber erupted in blinding light. Outside, the dead planet pulsed brighter than ever, as if a new sun was being born in its heart. And far above, in orbit, Dr. Mara Keen watched her screens flicker and whispered in disbelief, Eli, what have you become? The chamber was burning with light. White and blue waves pulsed across the walls, climbing like living fire. Eli stood at the center, his small body trembling as the energy from within him surged outward. The current forms around him flickered, their shapes unstable, their glowing edges twisting between solid and smoke. Stop, he shouted, clutching his head. I don't know what's happening. You are awakening. The Karen voices murmured in unison, calm even as the walls shook. You were the spark. You were always meant to be. Eli fell to his knees, gasping for air. The power was too much. He could feel the planet's heartbeat inside his chest, a deep, rhythmic pulse echoing through the ground. Every time it beat, his skin flashed with light. The energy that had destroyed Karen the Ford was alive again, and now it was listening to him, far above. In the orbiting wreckage of what was once the Artemis, Dr. Mara Keen fought to stabilize her shuttle's controls. The gravitational field of the planet was going wild, fluxing like a living storm. The readouts showed massive energy spikes across the surface. Her voice trembled as she spoke into the comm. Eli, hold on. I'm close. I'm coming to get you, baby. Just hold on. The Karen stepped closer, their figures taller now, sharper, more defined. They moved like shimmering ghosts through the trembling air. One reached out to him, light bending around its arm. The power you hold is not yours alone, it said softly. You carry our essence. Together we can restore what was lost. Eli forced himself to stand. His voice was low, but it carried through the entire chamber. You're not restoring anything. You're trying to control me. We are trying to survive, the being answered, its voice echoing like 1,000 whispers. You burned our bodies to ash. Now through you we rise again. That is balance. Eli shook his head. Balance? You call killing my people balance? The air grew colder. The Karen lights dimmed slightly, but their eyes, bright, blue, ancient, did not waver. Your kind kills for power. We kill for memory. You owe us life. He took a shaky step backward. The ground pulsed beneath him, reacting to his fear. Cracks of light spread from where he stood, racing across the floor like veins of molten glass. The Karen flinched, the glow hurt them. He realized it in that instant. The energy obeyed him more than it obeyed them. Somewhere deep below the surface, the planet rumbled, a sound like thunder inside stone. Mara's ship broke through the upper atmosphere, flames trailing behind it. Her eyes widened as she saw the city of glass and light below, and in the center of it, a boy glowing like a miniature sun. Eli, she whispered. On the ground, Eli felt her presence, faint but real. Mom, he breathed. He looked back at the Karen. You don't have to hurt anyone. You can live in the light, not destroy everything. You do not understand what you are, one of the Karen said, stepping closer. Its voice was softer now, almost sad. You're not a boy anymore. You are the seed of rebirth, and our vessel. He clenched his fists. No, I'm still me. A powerful surge of energy burst out from him. The shockwave blasted outward, throwing the Karen forms back into the walls. Their glowing bodies shattered into sparks before reforming again. The whole structure groaned under the strain. Eli screamed as the power surged through him uncontrollably. Images flashed in his mind. The day he pressed the red button, the fire that devoured the planet, the billions of voices crying out and then fading into silence. He fell to the floor, gripping his head, tears burning his eyes. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. The Karen surrounded him again, their voices now whispering in a haunting harmony. We know. And now you will make it right. Suddenly, beams of light shot from their hands, connecting with his body. He gasped as energy poured into him, memories, pain, and ancient knowledge flooding his mind. He saw their history, their birth, their fall, their last moments before his mistake erased them. Every image burned inside him like fire. The ground cracked. The sky outside turned white. Mara's ship shook violently as she approached the surface. Warning lights flashed red across her cockpit. No, 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 Eli, don't do this, she shouted. Inside the glowing chamber, Eli's body lifted from the ground. His eyes turned completely blue, his voice layered with echoes. If I take your pain, he said slowly, then I take your power too. The Karen hesitated. They could feel it, their energy slipping from their control. The boy they had tried to use was becoming something more, something they didn't understand. A brilliant light burst from him, expanding outward like a wave. The Karen screamed, not in agony but in fear. Their forms began to unravel, dissolving into particles of light that swirled around Eli before vanishing into him. The entire planet shook. Above, Mara's ship was caught in a blinding flare. She shielded her eyes, whispering, Eli. When the light faded, there was silence. The city was gone. The planet's surface was flat and calm, a mirror of glass stretching in every direction, and at the center stood Eli, alone, surrounded by glowing dust, his eyes still faintly blue. He looked up at the sky and whispered, I didn't save them. I became them. Then his mother's voice crackled weakly through the comm. Eli, I'm here. I found you. He turned slowly toward the voice, but his reflection in the glass ground looked back at him, and it wasn't human anymore. The planet was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes after war, but the kind that feels alive, waiting. A faint wind moved across the glassy surface, carrying whispers that weren't truly sounds. They were thoughts, fragments of voices that once belonged to the Karen. The planet itself now spoke, softly humming beneath Eli's feet. He stood still, staring at his reflection. His face was human, but faint lines of glowing blue ran under his skin like rivers of light. His eyes shimmered faintly. Not just blue, but layered with shifting patterns, alive with something beyond human. Eli. His mother's voice came through the comm, shaky but real. Can you hear me? Please answer. He touched his wrist, and for a moment he hesitated. His body no longer felt solid, and it felt fluid, like the light itself moved through him. Mom, he whispered. I'm here. Mara Keen's breath caught in her throat. Her small shuttle hovered above the ruins, searching for a safe place to land. Oh, thank God. Eli, stay where you are, baby. I'm coming down. He looked up at the sky, at the faint glimmer of her ship cutting through the dusty air. Something deep within him, the strange energy now part of his being, reacted. The glass ground pulsed softly, sending a ripple of light outward, like the planet was breathing with him. But far away at the horizon, the light started to move on its own. Shapes began to rise from the ground, tall, shifting figures made of the same blue glow. They looked like the Karen, but twisted, incomplete. Their faces flickered, their voices echoing like static in the air. Child of fire, they whispered in thousands of overlapping tones. You carry us, but we are not whole. Eli took a step back, heart pounding. No, you're gone. You're supposed to be gone. We live within you, the voices answered. But our essence spreads. We are becoming again. He shook his head. You can't, the world can't take it, it'll burn again. The voices grew louder, vibrating in the air. Then let it burn anew. From death comes rebirth. Mara's shuttle touched down nearby, kicking up waves of dust and glowing shards. She ran out, her suit flickering with static from the strange atmosphere. The sight of her son made her stop in her tracks. He stood surrounded by light, his outline blurring as if reality couldn't decide what he was. Eli? She said softly, almost afraid to come closer. He turned toward her. For a moment his eyes softened, the same warm brown she remembered. Mom? She ran forward and wrapped her arms around him and gasped. His body was warm but weightless, like holding sunlight through water. She could feel his heart, slow and deep, beating in time with the rumble of the planet itself. "Oh my God," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "What happened to you?" Eli pulled back gently. "They're not gone, Mom. The Karen, they're inside me, and they're trying to come back." Before she could speak, the ground shuddered violently. The glowing figures at the horizon grew taller, more defined. They were merging with the planet, forming new structures, towers of energy, rising higher with every pulse. Mara's scanner beeped rapidly. Energy surge, massive. "Eli, we need to leave now." Eli didn't move. He stared at the towers, feeling their pull. "If I leave, they'll follow me. They'll find Earth." She grabbed his shoulders. "Then we'll stop them together." He smiled faintly. "You don't understand, Mom. They are me." A deep rumble echoed through the air, not from below but from above. The clouds cracked open as a massive beam of light shot from the planet into the sky, piercing the void. Space itself rippled. In orbit, distant satellites picked up the surge. Across human colonies and research outposts, alarms blared. A planet thought to be dead was waking up again, and broadcasting something. Eli's voice trembled. "They're calling the stars. Calling others." Mara's eyes widened. "We have to shut it down." He nodded slowly, the glow in his hands intensifying. "There's only one way." The wind picked up, swirling around them in a storm of glowing dust. The Karen figures began to close in, whispering louder now, their words overlapping like 1,000 desperate prayers. "Join us, child of fire. Be one with your creation. The universe must remember us." Eli shouted back, "I remember you. I carry you. But this ends here." He raised his hands and the ground erupted with light. Streams of blue energy shot upward, colliding with the massive beam that reached into space. The air trembled, the planet screamed, not in pain, but in resistance. Mara shielded her eyes as the entire world turned white. Through the blinding light, she could see Eli standing firm, his body dissolving into shimmering fragments, his voice echoing softly through the storm. "Tell them, I didn't mean to destroy. I meant to save." The beam shattered. The sky went dark. When the light faded, the planet was still again. The towers were gone. The hum had stopped. Mara dropped to her knees, breathing hard. The ground beneath her was warm, faintly glowing, but silent. "Eli?" she whispered. No answer. Just the faint reflection of her own face in the glassy ground. And for a brief second, the outline of a boy smiling faintly before fading into the light. Tears filled her eyes. She looked up at the empty sky. "My boy, you saved them all." But somewhere deep beneath the planet's crust, a heartbeat echoed. Slow, steady. Ancient Eli was still there. Not gone. Changed. Waiting. The stars over Karen 4 were quiet again. From orbit, the planet looked calm, a frozen sphere of blue glass glowing faintly under the light of its dying sun. For weeks, no one had dared approach it. The incident had erased every trace of the research base, every human structure, every ship. Only a smooth mirror-like surface remained, stretching endlessly across the world. But far from the ruined system, deep in human space, something strange began to happen. A signal. At first, it was faint, a soft pulse echoing across deep space relays, repeating every 17 minutes. It wasn't a distress call, nor any known human transmission pattern. It was a heartbeat. The technicians on the listening post Helios 9 were the first to detect it. They recorded it, studied it, slowed it down, and inside that steady pulse they found a voice, fragmented, layered, but unmistakably human. "Don't be afraid. It's me." The command center fell silent. Dr. Mara Keene was called in immediately. She hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were hollow, her voice dull. She'd refused to leave orbit around Karen 4, as if waiting for something, or someone, to answer her. When she entered the room, the technicians looked up. One of them pressed play. The voice filled the speakers. It was faint, distorted by static, but it carried emotion, warmth, sorrow, and something else. Control. "Mom, I'm okay." Mara froze. The sound seemed to reach through her chest and pull her heart apart. "Eli," she whispered. The others exchanged uneasy glances. The voice continued. "I stopped the Karen. They're not gone, just quiet now, sleeping. I'm keeping them safe." "Where are you?" one of the officers asked quietly, forgetting it was only a recording. I'm still here, the voice said. But I'm not what I was. I can see things, Mom. I can hear the stars. The audio cracked with a burst of static. Then softly, don't try to bring me back. Mara covered her mouth, tears spilling down her face. Eli, please. You're my son. I can't just promise me, Mom. The voice interrupted, sharper now, though still calm. Don't come here again. Don't let anyone else land. The Karen are peaceful now, but if they wake before they're ready, the signal faded briefly, then returned. They'll see humanity as the fire that ended them. The room went silent again. Only the faint pulse remained, like a heartbeat in deep space. The technician looked at Mara. Ma'am, what should we do? She didn't answer. Her gaze was locked on the holographic display of Karen 4, her son's tomb, or perhaps his new world. Keep listening, she said softly. If he speaks again, I'll be here. Days turned into weeks. The signal kept pulsing, always the same, and until one morning, it changed. The pulse slowed, and a series of images were embedded in the transmission. Strange geometric patterns, glowing symbols, and flashes of light that scientists later realized were coordinates, not random ones. They pointed to other systems, worlds that once belonged to the Karen Empire. The implications were terrifying. Was Eli warning them, or was something or someone like spreading? Back on Karen 4, deep beneath the crystalline crust, a faint glow pulsed through the core. Energy moved like blood through veins of glass. Within that core, a figure stood, or rather floated, surrounded by swirling lights that whispered in 1,000 voices. Eli's form was translucent, his body now part of the planet itself. The Karen's energy flowed around him like a living ocean. He could see everything, the stars, the distant colonies, even Earth. But he didn't feel human anymore. He felt balanced. The Karen voices spoke softly in his mind. You have become our heart, he nodded slowly, and you've become my memory. Far above, a small ship passed by the planet's orbit, a probe sent by the human fleet to monitor the energy field. As it approached, Eli raised his hand. The light around him shimmered, and the probe stopped mid-flight, held by invisible energy. Through its cameras, the scientists back at Helios 9 saw something that made their blood run cold, a face forming in the reflection of the planet's surface. A boy's face, smiling. The transmission cut out. Back on the station, every system flickered for a moment, lights dimming, screens flashing with static. Then for a brief second, every terminal displayed the same message. Humanity is safe. Do not come back. And just like that, the signal ended. No one ever heard from Karen 4 again. But sometimes, when deep space explorers pass the system, their ships pick up a faint pulse. A rhythmic beat, a child's heartbeat, and if they listen carefully, they swear they can hear a whisper inside the static. Still here, Mom. The transmission ends. The stars remain silent. And the legend of Eli, the child of fire, becomes one of humanity's greatest mysteries.